Hi everybody! Today I'm going to be filming a bit of a different video, but I thought I'd kind of mix it up a little bit, wouldn't just stay along the lines of the same old beauty and hair kind of stuff. And so I thought I'd do a video about how I revised for my recent exams and little kind of tips and tricks on how to pass exams and just how to not stress out and freak yourself out and just have a good time at the same time as working really hard and doing really well. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about that. The first thing I'm going to talk about is my techniques for revising, which may be different to other people's techniques, which is totally fine because everybody revises differently. And I totally advise that you go and you get a test done, which is you can get tests online that you answer a few questions and they tell you whether you're auditory, visual or kinesthetic learners, and then you can tailor your revision schedule and program to that type of learning. I am sort of a bit of visual and kinesthetic, but I lean more towards the side of visual, so a lot of my revision techniques involve colour and writing because they help it stick in my head. So the first thing I'm going to say is that for exams that are multiple choice, I find that mind maps work really well for me. So here I've got my mind maps from my last exam, the end of last term in December. I passed that exam pretty well, so I think that this technique did work for me in that exam. Obviously, like I said, it's different depending on kind of who you are. So for each sort of PowerPoint, each topic, I would make a different mind map, and so I'd ended up sticking them all over my walls in my room at uni. And I did look a little bit like a mentalist, and the maintenance men who came and checked my bathroom and my room and all that kind of stuff did mention to me that they thought I might be a little bit insane, but it worked and I passed, and I can now keep these for future reference because they're kind of about general biology and chemistry and like anatomy and physiology and stuff, so they're really helpful for me later in my degree, so I'm liking that. Also, I colour code them by rainbow, so I start with red, always in the middle, red, and then I radiate out with the rainbow, and it just kind of helps me remember. If I know that I know a certain thing, it's like, oh, I remember that because it was yellow and it was in the top left hand corner, and it just helps me with recalling knowledge. So this is more about exams where you have to recall stuff, not necessarily exams where you have to really fully understand everything and apply it. Like, it's more about the memory side of things, I find, with mind maps. So they're a good basis for application exams, but I would not advise using mind maps as your only kind of piece of revision. Like, you can use mind maps, but I would advise use them in conjunction with something else. So yeah, I do think they're good. My next thing that I do is I'll write out some mind maps. Usually if I'm using them as my basis, I won't do them in as much detail because otherwise they would take up too much time and I could be doing something else. So as well as mind maps, I will go through each mind map and then I will write it in a more concise way and put it into a book, and then I kind of make a contents page for that book, and if I make the book colourful and if I draw pictures and if I make it look like a textbook, it helps me even further. In this book I have my my notes from my latest exam, which I did about skeletal and visceral imaging. So I have here like the respiratory system and then every part of the respiratory system all in notes and labelled. Osteology, so things about bones and stuff, because basically, yeah, I'm doing a degree in diagnostic radiography, so that's why I probably should have mentioned that at the start, but there you go. I'm doing a degree in diagnostic radiography, so I need sort of anatomy and physiology of the body and then how to image it. And I also have, from the back, I have my science and technology notes, because I also did a physics exam about how the X-ray tube works and stuff. So yeah, I found that one really useful and it was really good for referencing. So if I knew I had written something in here or I knew I'd gone over it but I couldn't quite remember exactly what it was, this was a really good like tool for me to go back and not have to trawl through loads of textbooks and go through all the like really long-winded explanations, whereas I had a concise version of it in here, so I love that. For highlighting all my things in that book, I use the Staedtler Text Surfer Classic highlighters. These ones are really, really good because they are made so that they don't smudge any of your ink, because that is the worst thing, especially with yellow highlighters. If you have just like freshly written something in ink, or you've freshly printed something and you want to highlight it, and your yellow highlighter just gets all black and blue on the end and highlights. It's just a mess. It just like smudges everything together and it's now illegible, and the whole highlighting process has been ruined. As you can tell, I have used this one a lot and it has stayed pretty bright yellow on the end, so I'm liking that. Although they do smell a little bit like vinegar, but I think that's a small issue in the grand scheme of things. And I also find a really good thing for me, like I said, everybody has different techniques, is if I have really nice stationery, I will be sort of more inclined to do work. So my favourite pens to use are the Class Olson blue ballpoint pens. I know a lot of people for exams, you can't use blue pens, you have to use black, so these are really good at home revision pens, and they come in a variety of colours, so they're just nicer, and I find they write really well, they're really light and they don't weigh you down, they're just really nice, and they've got a little rubber holder as well, so you don't get a sore finger if you've been writing too long, because that is the worst thing, especially in exams when you're getting like a little blister on the inside of your finger. It's just not fun. So I would totally recommend these. These are really good, really cheap as well, totally worth the money, and I think that students can get a discount as well, so that's even better. Another thing that I think is really useful when you're trying to keep on top of your revision is to write lists of things you've got to do. Like, you can either write lists of things you've got to do between the end of class and your exams, which I did. So I had a list. I don't have it on me right now because I left it back home just before my exams, so I accidentally left it there, but I wrote out a list of every like topic that I'd done in class, every PowerPoint we'd done, and then I had a special highlighting system where I'd write what I'd done next to it. Like if I'd written the notes on it, I'd write like a little NT and then highlight in a certain colour. So I had this little list, so I knew exactly how many things I had to do and exactly how long I had to do it, so I could divide my time, and so I wouldn't get carried away, because sometimes you find that especially with some of the things I was doing, you could get too carried away and you can go into too much detail, and then you've just wasted more time when you could have been learning something that was actually more useful for the exam you're doing. So I find that lists is definitely a good thing, but writing lists is one thing, but sticking to your lists is definitely an even better thing. You definitely need to do that. I didn't do that as well as I could have done, but now I know for next time I will stick to my lists a lot better. In conjunction with lists, I think revision timetables are also really useful, because they kind of prompt you to move on if you're stuck on one topic too long, or if you don't really feel in the mood to work. If you've got a timetable, you feel more like, not pressure, but you feel more coerced into doing it. If you're thinking, oh, I'll just sit here and I'll watch TV a bit longer, or I'll just lie in bed a bit longer. If you've got a revision timetable that you know you have to stick to, it kind of forces you to do it more. It's kind of like having school again, because you know you had to go to school. You wouldn't just wake up on a morning and say, oh, I'll just stay in bed a bit longer and I won't go into school today. You'd get up and you'd go to school. So if you have a revision timetable, you're more likely to kind of get up and get on with it. I use the Get Revising timetables, and I use their they have a lot of resources on there for help with revision, and they have quizzes and all that kind of stuff. So if you need any help with that, or if you don't want to make your own revision timetable, because I know I don't like to make my own, because I think it takes up too much time making an actual timetable when you could be doing work. So I just go and Get Revising, and you can just like put in all your topics, and you can assign how much time you want to spend on each. Like if you think you're not as good at maths as you are at English, you can kind of decide how much you do of each. But anyway, I would definitely advise to check that out. So yeah, keep sticking to your timetables and you should do a lot better. Another thing that's really useful is don't be afraid to ask for help. I mean, I know I'm so guilty of this. In my A-levels, if I struggled with anything and I could see that everyone around me was doing really well and they all understood, and I was just sat there like, what's going on? I would not go and ask for help, because I thought it was kind of a loss. I was like, I'm not going to lose, I'm not going to, admit that I can't do it. I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to do it myself. And it didn't always work, because sometimes if you just don't understand something, no matter how much you do for yourself, you're never going to get there. There are just some things that you just don't get there. Whereas if you go and ask your teacher, they know exactly what they're talking about, they know what's going on, and they're there to teach. So you really shouldn't feel like I felt and think it's a loss to go and ask for help. Like, definitely just make a meeting with them, go and catch them after class, and don't be afraid to ask more questions than you think are appropriate, because they're never going to think that you're stupid, and then in the long run you're going to be cleverer for it. So definitely do that and don't be afraid. The final thing I've got to say about this is don't overwork yourself. I mean, it's all well and good me saying, you know, get up out of bed, do your revision, do this, do that. Like, don't overwork. Set yourself a time limit on the day, so give yourself however many hours you want to work, and then once you hit that time limit, say 6 or 7 o'clock at night, relax, make yourself some dinner, put on some TV and just have some downtime to yourself, and don't think about it, don't worry about it. The worst thing to do is in the scheduled downtimes and scheduled breaks is to just sit there like, oh, I could be doing more, I should be doing more, there's this I could do, this that I could do. Just take that time, relax, and it'll just, all that knowledge you've kind of acquired throughout the day and throughout the previous weeks and months or whatever, it'll all just like settle in your brain, and then you'll be a lot fresher for it. If you overwork yourself, you kind of run the risk of burning out, and then your brain just being like, nope, I don't remember any of it. And then when you come to the exam and you just sat there in front of it and you're like, oh my god, what do any of these words mean? Just take that time to relax. Usually on weekends you can have a little bit longer to relax, and then the best thing to do, I've found, and that my teachers always told me in A-level, is that the day before an exam, stop earlier. So stop at sort of 4 o'clock in the afternoon and just chill out. And on the morning of the exam you can be lightly reading over your notes and sort of going over things a little bit in your head. Don't be doing hardcore cramming revision, because that's never the best way to go, because you're not going to understand anything. You're literally just going to regurgitate it, and sometimes you might not fully understand what you're talking about, and it just doesn't come across as well in the exam. If you just relax, you know, have a good breakfast in the morning, you know, sleep a little bit longer so you've got more sleep, and, you know, just don't freak out. Don't freak out about your exams. I am the worst for freaking out about my exams, but ever since I kind of finished my A-levels and now I'm come to uni, I've got a lot better at that. And you know, you have your friends and your family around you to tell you you're doing well as well, because I always need that. I'm always like, I haven't done enough work, Mum, have I done enough work? And she's always like, Poppy, stop freaking out, you've done enough work. So it's okay. Always ask for that reassurance. You know, you shouldn't feel bad for having to ask if you've done enough in somebody else's eyes, because usually you have. Anyway, thank you for watching my video today. I hope it's been useful for any of you with upcoming GCSEs, A-levels, university exams or anything like that. I hope it's helped, and that you kind of can employ some of my techniques, or, you know, go and take one of those tests and come up with your own things. If anybody comes up with their own things or has like their own ways of revising that I didn't mention that they think would be useful, you can just pop it in the comments below and other people can see. So I just hope it will be a nice helpful way for a lot of you to get on with your exams and do really well. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next video on Wednesday. Bye!